You know, when they introduce me sometimes, and I want to meet that guy, I'm thinking, boy, I don't know who he is, but he really sounds like somebody. Been in 6 countries in the last 2 months, and travel is just starting to get back together. But there's a word that I had for all of COVID. It was the word awkward. I don't even know how I'm supposed to order in a McDonald's anymore. Everything's awkward. And now there's a word, whether it's in Italy or France or Spain or Portugal, I was just in all of those, and there's a sadness. Things are just not quite where they belong, and everybody knows something's wrong and they feel something. There's a stir going on internationally. It's true, the skies are open, groups are starting to go, and we're trying to get things moved, but it's also true that there's a feeding frenzy going on for the few hotels that are open. And there's all kinds of craziness going on out there. I want to talk to you not about the world, not about the big things that are going on all around you, but what's going on in you. What's happening to you? By the time Joni and John came into my office, I knew them to be a young couple that had started off incredibly in love. They were doing so well, and then something happened. Neither of them could tell me what it was. One of the frustrations of pastoring is people come to you for pastoral counsel on their marriage just after they ruined it. Not 3 days before when there's still something you could do with it. And anybody that looked at their lives would tell you those two needed a restart button. When I was married, my pastor said to me and my dear wife, as we stood there in the church, he said, Randy, never lose the tender tones you have for this woman. That's stuck in my heart. It's there to this day. Something happens. One day, you just don't have what you had the day before, and you're not sure where it went or why it happened. There was a guy named Steve. He walked into my office and he told me a story. I pass it to you because it helps set up this reset idea. Steve was a guy who went to business school. He got himself an MBA, wanted to go out and start a company. And for 10 years, Steve labored hard. He built good products. He built a good team. He brought in good clients. Nobody's exactly sure how it happened, but he went fishing with a couple of guys out on a canal here in South Florida. And he was back on the tail of the boat, and he put his foot down, and he must have gotten it caught in between the back of the boat and the tail. And he said it was the weirdest thing. I was just trying to untangle a line, and next thing I knew, I heard a crunch and a snap, and he had broken his knee and his ankle and his leg. And the rest of about a month and a half, he went through a series of 4 or 5 surgeries. And when he finally could come back to his job, he got a chance to come into the company that he built, but now he's a spectator. And he's standing there and he's looking at all the people, and he said, you know what? This is a caustic environment. These guys, the way they're acting in this, something has to happen. We've got to hit a reset on this thing because this isn't going the way I dreamed it. This is not the vision of a company I thought we would have. Now, I tell you those stories just to say, recently our government went through a thing that they're called Building Back Better. I don't want to hear what you think about it. I'm just making a reference to the idea that people are saying, you know, if we could hit a reset, isn't that a good idea? Whether you've been part of a club or a civic organization or a company or a marriage or a church, we get to that place where sometimes you're in a rut and you're thinking, if I could just get the reset button, if I could find that button and hit reset, then I could go back to that lost vision, that lost passion. Well, here's the best part. When you find you're in desperate need of a reset, God's word provides answers. Because there isn't anything so broke he can't fix it. Remember, everything that is because he made it. So there's a story in the Bible, and I'm going to ask you to take your Bible, i.e. your phone, and turn to Haggai. Haggai is, go to the end of the Old Testament, make a left, go back a couple of books, you'll find him. It's a minor prophet in the Bible that comes from a time when a reset had to happen in the lives of God's people. After disobedience and distance from God's heart led them into captivity, a small contingent of people was called to come back into the land to restart the temple. Now, I know what happens when I start talking history for some of you. You start hearing, womp, 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 womp. Old stuff from dead people, what do I care? Well, here's what I want you to hear. God called them to rebuild the temple, but God doesn't need masonry. God's not looking for a location. This isn't Club God. What he was doing was, I want to put a heart and a passion for people to worship and revere me, and you need a place to come and do it. So he called people back. Look, don't get distracted by their task, because it doesn't matter. What's at the center of the story is the reset button. I don't care if it's a marriage or your call to parent a difficult child. It doesn't matter what the task that God has called you to. It matters that at a certain point, you're going to need to reach for a button and hit reset, because you're going to get lost in a rut. Cue the storm. Hey, that's all right. My other home, I have a home here in Sebring. My other one's in Bat Cave, North Carolina, and they're expecting 12 inches of snow right now. So that's going to be kind of fun. Can we all just admit, it's a lot easier to dump an old situation that's not working out than it is to hit a reset button. That's why the divorce rates are what they are. We get to a certain point and we go, it ain't worth it. I think I'll just start again. But here's the thing. If God calls you to something, any departure from what God calls you from is a profound move in the wrong direction. So to illustrate that, I go to Haggai chapter 1. Now, Haggai, his name Hag, is the word for festival. It means party man, festive man. See if you can say his name, Haggai. It's not Haggai, it's Haggai. Now, don't spit on your neighbor. That's not kind. The point is that there's a guttural sound. This is the word for festival or festive. And God gave this book to show deep underlying cracks in the foundation of what his people were doing, and how he wanted to reposition them so he could get them back on mission, back on the agenda he had for them. Now, the time was such that 500 years before Jesus, this is happening. 200 years before that, the northern kingdom was taken into captivity, and by that time, people didn't even know where they were. And just 500 years before Jesus, the southern kingdom was taken off to Babylon, and everybody but the blind, crippled, and crazy got taken, and Jerusalem was reduced to just fallow ground. The temple was destroyed. Zedekiah watched his children killed in front of him, and then had his eyes put out because the Babylonian wanted to make the point that's the last thing you get to see in life. They're carted into chains. They go into Babylon. Some of them are there as many as 94 years. Others are there about 65 years. And here's what I know. God promises to bring them back in the land. But when he promises to bring them back, he gives them a mission. He tells them, I want you to go back and rebuild the temple. Now, here's the problem. They got back after a couple of generations. The temple was destroyed. It was a big job. Most of them weren't builders. There were a little over 50,000 of them that came back with Zerubbabel and Sheshbazzar. And they weren't builders, but they would build if you gave them a job. It was like a church workday. So they're all standing there getting told what to do. Well, then that night they went out to the family farm to great-grandma's house, and they realized, this house ain't so bad. We clean it up a little bit, we could probably turn it into something. And the next day they show up a little less on the temple and a little more on their house and a little less on the temple and a little more on their house. And after a time period, by 16 years after they got there, the temple isn't open, but their houses are looking pretty good. Because it's easy to take the passionate call of God and turn it into a passion for personal comfort. Because I want what I want. And so what did God do? Haggai chapter 1, in the second year of Darius the king, on the first day of the 6th month, the word of the Lord came by the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. saying. Stop right there. Breaking into the scene, God sends a prophet, but he sends it in a recall notice. He sends it with the initiation of conviction. Because in order to grab and press a reset button in your life, God first has to call you up short, remind you of your mission, reestablish, and tell you that you've been recalled. And so the bottom line here is the word of the Lord came. That's what it says in verse 1. But notice Haggai, whose name is supposed to be Partay, is actually bringing hard words of conviction. Don't push against God's conviction. It's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. You know, those little beepers in your car when you're going out of your lane, some of the new cars, they start beeping as soon as you drift off the lane. Can I tell you, US 27, a lot of drivers, they need those beepers. They really need those beepers. Those beepers may be aggravating, but they're helpful. My wife has one in her car that tells her if somebody's in the blind spot on the car. If she hits the blinker, it'll say beep, 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 meaning somebody's back there and you're not seeing them. That's helpful. If you don't want to spend any time in some of our lovely hospitals in Highlands County, it's helpful. So I want you to remember when God calls a believer and knocks on their heart, whether it's a man or a woman, regardless of what the task is, when there is a gap between your call and your walk, there's a little twinge of conviction that happens. And when that happens, don't forget that in verse 1, it was the Word of God that came, because the Word of God is the chief vehicle through which conviction actually is given. Now, here's the problem. Don't follow your feelings. We live in a time where we have exalted feelings above God in this country. And here's what I want to tell you. Feelings are deceptive. I learned early on in my Christian life and experience that you can actually feel guilty when you're not doing anything wrong. See, when I was first saved, my parents had bought me a drum set, and I went and I was learning the drum. Now, I'm not saying I was good, and I'm not saying that you should be subjected to hearing it. I'm only saying I was attempting to learn, and then we had a revival in our church. You remember a revival? We had a guy come in and say, drums are of the devil. Drums, devil. In hell, it sounds like boom, boom, boom. It's of the devil. Get rid of those drum sets. You know what I did? I got rid of my drum set. Now, he was just wrong. He wasn't bad. He just took his personal preference and made it a Bible verse. That's all he did. And now I'm all over the world, and can I tell you, you can't even have a worship service in Africa if there isn't a drum. Everybody's going, what are you, faking it? So here's the truth. You can feel guilty about something that isn't even wrong because you were brought up a certain way and somebody told you their preference and made it sound like Jesus' voice and you just believed it. But you know what? There's also in contradistinction the opposite. I know some of you. I know Highlands County well enough after living here for 20 years. Let me tell you, some of you have learned how to feel okay about being wrong. Because you really believe when you drive down the Florida highway system that 55 is a suggestion for lesser drivers. But you got it nailed, you know your car, and so you don't have to worry about those numbers on the highway because you're doing something important, like going to Walmart. So here's the thing. People can talk themselves into being fine about being wrong. How many of you have got an expert degree in rationalization? You can turn wrong into right in your own mind. Here's the truth. That's why God sends more than just his prophet. He sends his word. Because verse 1 tells me you could ignore the man, but you cannot ignore the voice of God. Because when God speaks, all others stand silent. There's something very powerful about God's word. So 2 men were used of God, Sheshbazzar and Zerubbabel. Now, when you read verse 1, I want you to smile because God's on the job. And when people forgot what they were supposed to be about, God showed up and he spoke. And by the way, God's convicting word is a word of grace and mercy. God is not some kind of cosmic killjoy up there going, there's one having fun, get him, zap. That's not what he's doing. He's trying to say to you, I gave you a mission in life, and you're way off mission feeding your own comforts. You got to get back to what I told you. Now, first, he sends his word, but look at the end of verse 1, because there is an end of verse 1, and I am going to do the rest of the verse 2. God dealt with leaders about the obedience of everybody else. You see, when God sends a message to men and women, he sends it to people and puts a burden on their heart because you're in the game and you're supposed to have the passion for what God called you to. But most often, he sends a word directly to those who are in charge, those who can make a difference. Now, here's the thing. There's two things you need to keep in view here. Hey, look at verse 1. Look at the end. Now, you saw that name Zerubbabel and Joshua, right? You're not going to call your kids Zerubbabel, so what do you need to see this for? I want you to circle in your mind's eye the word governor and the words high priest. These are leaders. Civic leaders, religious leaders. Two things I want you to keep in mind. When God speaks, he speaks and he rattles the hearts of leaders first. There's a stir in the leadership, and people who are sensitive to God's word begin to feel that stir. And here's the thing. I don't know a nice way to say it, so I'm just going to be blunt. Nations get the leaders they grew. We're living with what we grew. So do churches. And if we don't deliberately model, disciple, encourage, expect the next generation to come up in a path that we're laying out for them with passion. Don't think it's going to happen without real effort. No one ever unintentionally becomes holy. It takes intention. You have to work at it. The next generation has to see it, and there has to be sensitivity to let the word of Christ dwell in them richly. Not only that, but I think it's worth reminding ourselves that we cannot exempt ourselves from what's going on in our homes. You are a leader somewhere. There are people leaning on you. Whether it's in the office or in the home or in the church or in the community, there are people that are leaning on you. God grant that believers will be so strengthened in 21 days that Highlands County will notice, that something will happen. But we need a renewing touch. It is so easy. Guys, in the time in which we live, it is so easy to get all riled up about the White House and excuse your house. And act like nothing's happening at your house. You need to be responsible for your house. And if we grow the right kids, we'll get the right leaders. And if we don't, we won't. So it's time for us to understand the conviction of the word that was directed to leaders. That's verse 1. Look at verse 2, because there's another verse. God challenged their words with true heart issues. Look what it says. Thus says the Lord of hosts, this people says the time has not come, even the time for the house of the Lord to be rebuilt. Then the word of the Lord came to Haggai, the prophet, saying, is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses while this house lies desolate? Now therefore, thus says the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. I want you to see what they did. Clearly, these people had built together an argument against God's timing. See, they said, I get that God wants us to build the temple, but it's not the right time to do it. When God tells you to do something, that's the time to do it. Would you be open to the idea there's a few things he sees from heaven that you're not catching from Highlands County? That it's possible that God knows more than me? Sounds right, doesn't it? I just spoke to a young guy, and he said to me, he said, Dr. Randy, I know in class you taught us that it was wrong for me to go out and initiate a marriage relationship with a young lady that does not know Jesus. And I said, son, it's not that she doesn't know Jesus, it's that she's not even interested in talking about Jesus. Where do you think this is going? This is what he said to me. He said, I know what God's word says, but I know that God understands my special circumstances. I said, okay, well, let's peel away those circumstances. Let's see what it is that's so special about what it is. What it came down to was how he felt. exempted from doing what God's word says because God knows how I feel. See, that takes the throne of your heart, dislodges God, and puts feelings on it. And it feels right, and it's absolutely not right. Here's what I want you to know. You will not find peace, security, and happiness when you walk a path different than what God's word says. I'm not being mean. I'm trying to be nice. And here's the truth. Don't forget, beloved, don't forget that in the first century, one apostle after another, one church leader after another kept calling themselves a doulos of Jesus Christ, a slave of Jesus Christ. Paul said it, Peter said it, John said it, James said it, Jude said it. How many times do they have to say it? I am a slave of Jesus Christ. You don't hear that anymore. Because we're thinking God's up there waiting on us. And the truth is, you know, I spent the last few years teaching Roman life because I'm archaeologically a Roman specialist, a forensic specialist. And here's what I know about slaves in the Roman world. You don't go to bed when you want if you're a slave. You don't get up when you want if you're a slave. You wait on the master. You take care of what they want. The whole issue of your life is what do they want, not how do I feel today? And Paul called himself a slave of Jesus Christ. What happened to that in Christianity? Deliberately delayed obedience is another creative form of disobedience. We got all kinds of people who go, I'm going to do it, but just not now. You see, Haggai made the argument that neglecting masonry walls was a symptom of a heart problem. Now is when God expected them to engage the passion for his call. Y'all remember, do you remember the day that it became clear to you that it's easier to do the homework than to make up the elaborate story about the dog you don't have that ate your homework? How many of you remember that day? You burn up all this energy making up a lie so that you can rationalize why you just didn't do what you were supposed to do. We got to get to the point where the conviction of God goes, knock it off. Because that's the beginning of a reset button. God takes his word and penetrates the flimsy arguments and pierces our heart. So God's word came. It was directed to leaders. It pierced right into hard arguments. And look what I find. I find that God does this incredible thing. He connects the cause and effect of our sin and our troubles. Look, where do I see it? Go down to verse 6 for a second. Chapter 1, verse 6. It says, this is God gently reminding Haggai, you've sown much, but you harvest little. You eat, but there's not enough to be satisfied. You drink, but there's not enough to become drunk. You put on clothing, and no one is warm enough. And he who earns wages to put it into a purse with holes. Is that a great expression? You can't imagine living in a place where even when your paycheck goes up, the store prices go up faster. Can't imagine a place like that, can you? Thus says the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Drop down to verse 9. You look for much, but it became little. You bring it home, and I blow it away. Why, declares the Lord of hosts? Because of my house which lies desolate, while each of you runs to his own house. Therefore, because of you, the sky has withheld its dew, and the earth has withheld its produce. I called for drought on the land, on the mountains, on the grain, on the new wine, on the oil, on what the ground produces, on men, on cattle, and on all the labor of your hand. God couldn't be clearer. There are two people involved in this problem. He says, when you choose not to walk with me, I not only don't put the wind at your back, the world around you impedes your way. It doesn't assist you, it blocks you. Beloved, the enemy is a master at burying the cable between cause and effect. That's why in our country, we're so busy trying to cure the symptoms of something, we're not actually looking at your disease. We just want to give you some pills and send you home. We don't want to have to spend any time figuring out what's actually causing it. And the word teaches that what we do in our walk actually impacts the conditions God places around us in our life. Do you see that? Here's the thing. You're not going to live a life distant from Jesus and find God's design satisfaction in your life. You're not going to find God's will for you in a blessed relationship if you sleep your way through the office. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to cheat your way through your education and somehow have that professional life that is satisfying. You are not going to steal your fortune and then find God in the hallway of your house holding your hand in the new house you just bought with stolen money. See, God's will done God's way is what he's looking for. When believers pretend they can eat whatever they want, drink whatever they want, do whatever they want, follow after the desires of their own heart whenever they want, and place that above Jesus, they got to be kidding themselves. Listen to me carefully. God is for you when you're for his plan. But when you're against his plan, he has no interest in advancing your agenda. That's not mean. Your agenda takes you to a much lesser place. Let me say it another way. Your dreams for you are much less than God's dreams for you. So when you chase after yours, they're not what's best. So God doesn't blow the wind and bless them. Where did Haggai say the people could see the truth? Look at verse 6. He said, you're not liking what you're reaping. You're sowing hard, but you're reaping little. Listen, if you don't like what you're reaping, change what you're sowing. And here's the bottom line. You go to your wine storehouse, and there's a tight limit on what's produced. Remember, back in that time, wine was for celebration and wine was for medicine, and they didn't have enough of either. They felt on their skin cool nights, and they needed a heavier cloak, and they did not have enough. Did you ever lay in bed, and you're just cold enough that you're awake and feeling uncomfortable, but you're just warm enough that you don't want to get up and go out in the hall and get the blanket and bring it in? You know what I'm talking about? So you waste like a third of the night coming in and out of sleep going, I'm cold. Yeah, but I'm not that cold. Yeah, but go back to sleep. Yeah, but I'm cold. But I'm not that cold. You pay for it the next day at the office because you're tired. Look, they worked and worked and worked. They even got paid, but their economy was eating their money faster than they could possibly grow it. Beloved, we live in a time when Americans have pushed hard to forsake the commands of God in our streets. You know, we go rushing out the stairs and sing God Bless America when planes crash into buildings. We go right back inside Congress and vote him out of everything we can. And we think God's not paying attention. And we've spent, I'm a lot of time on a college campus. Can I tell you, we have spent a lot of time teaching young people about social causes, but not social graces. And we're finding ourselves all of a sudden looking at an America we don't even understand because so many people believe they're entitled to much, but not willing to do much. God connects the dots in his word. That's what he does. I love that he connects. He says, listen, you're experiencing this. Can I just remind you of how you got there? Two people involved. I made your trouble, but I made it because you defected. So you and I are responsible for the muck you're standing in because you walked off the path. God's not afraid to take responsibility. And here's the thing. We have to remember God's conviction. Listen to me. God's conviction is not cruel. God's conviction is corrective. No decent coach worth what they're being paid, and I wonder if any of them are worth what they're being paid, but nevertheless, no good coach is a good coach if he lets the player play badly and does not correct what they're doing. Now, that player can feel anything they want. You can't tell me how to shoot a ball. Yes, I can. I'm the coach. And I'm trying to make you better, son. Lady, I'm trying to make you better at what you're doing. The corrective nature of God's conviction is not cruel. It's kind. Don't kick against God saying, hey, you're in the wrong spot. You need that. So we have God using his word to convict and aiming at leaders. We have him directing the conviction toward hard attitudes. We have him connecting the dots. But look, there's a fifth thing he does. Look at verse 8. God fired words directly at the will of the people and told them what they have to do. You see, I don't know who you are, but I don't need God to beat around the bush. My wife says you can't take a hint. I don't take hints. So now here's what happens. When we're coming up on our anniversary, about a week before, she says, honey, next week when it's our anniversary, I was thinking maybe we would do this. That is so helpful to people who don't know, who don't remember what they're doing, because I only missed about 10 of the first 10. And the point is that it's really helpful when you just get direct. Listen to verse 8. Go up to the mountains, bring wood, rebuild the temple that I may be pleased with it and be glorified, says the Lord. Do you see it? First, God says, get up, go up. Because repentance and reset happens when change happens to our direction. Beloved, a reset with God is not just a heart thing and a head thing, it's a hands thing and a feet thing. If you're not happy with your walk right now, you are one change from stepping closer to God. But it's going to require that your hands and feet actually change. Do you know the number of people I talk to that do not know the difference between thinking about one day getting a job and getting one? They actually think an answer for the fact that they've been sitting at home eating Twinkies and sitting on the sofa and playing video games for months on end is, yeah, but I'm planning on getting a job. Planning don't make a paycheck. And here's the truth. We're living a life separated. Listen to how God is direct. I want you to bring some wood. This is not just a wagons ho moment. This is, you're going to have to go out and collect stuff and get ready. Sometimes you collect a team of people around you to help you with your reset, and sometimes you collect assets to help you with the reset, because assets make things possible, but people make them happen. And you put a team around you, and the passion of God gets put into your heart, and you begin to take on the attitude of obedience, because the attitude precedes the action. So you got to gather it up and get working. And notice that what God said in verse 8 is, I want you to get out there, rebuild the temple. They just didn't go willy-nilly into action. They were focused and purposed on what they're doing. Change happens in the heart. It starts with prioritizing that since God is God, what he says is more important than how I feel. That's not complicated. It's just hard to pull off. It says, God, what you want is more important than how I feel. Because I'm walking around in a Christianity of people that keep trading what God called them to do for what they want right now. And it's a bad choice. And in the end, they don't understand consecration. Consecration, look at the verse, it's about pleasing God. I keep running into Christians that go, well, I didn't go because there wasn't anything there for me. I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it. Have it your way is Burger King, not Grace Church. Stop down the street. Because right here, this is God's church. What about what he wants? It's his church. And we get to this place where we started to see the whole world. When I was a kid, they used to have a Saturday morning ditty cartoon. Maybe you remember this? Called The Most Important Person. And they sang, the most important person in the whole wide world is you, and you hardly even know you, the most important person. You know what? America believed them. We got all these people who are so important. What do you mean you didn't focus it on me and my felt needs? I'm not trying to be hard. I'm trying to say you'll lose a passion for God when you increase a passion for yourself. No man, no woman can show Christ and themselves at the same time. So you're going to have to decide with the number of years of your life that you have, who's going to be seen in your life. Now look at the response. Verse 12 says that they actually got busy and the people heard, and I see two responses. Both of them led to God's presence and empowering. They didn't only do one of the two responses, because that's a waste of time. Don't go halfway with a reset. You're just wasting your energy. It says in verse 12, Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and all the remnant of the people obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people showed reverence, yirah, as they recognized and responded to the awesome presence of God. They showed reverence for the Lord. A.W. Tozer said, what you think about God is the most important thing that describes what you are in life. Because for many of us, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, we don't hate God when we sin. We just forget that he's God. And how we feel becomes our new God. So we do what we want. And here's the bottom line. They obeyed. It says they obeyed. And they brought it. They stopped refusing God's right to say, this is what I want for you. And there was reverence because inside the recognition of who God is what helped them be able to do what God says. Listen to me. Don't teach your children in Christian homes to do right. Don't teach them to do right. Teach them to love Jesus. Because if you teach them to love Jesus, they'll do right for the higher cause. You teach them to do right, and they'll learn a list and become wonderful Pharisees of Highlands County, running around giving everybody their list. But if it's not energized and motivated by a heart love for Jesus Christ, then reverence did not precede obedience, and it wasn't real. So here's the truth. You might be sitting there going, well, I just don't know. How do I do this? This is the key to the whole lesson. How I look at God changes whether there's going to be a reset in my life. Is God powerful enough? He can raise a dead body. He can calm a storm. He can speak and there is light. He can hurl 1 quintillion stars, but he can't help me with my problem? That doesn't sound right, does it? Because it isn't right. It isn't right at all. There's going to be one person seated on the throne of your heart today. God made the highest ethic in the world love. Jesus was asked, what's the most important thing? He said, if you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Here's the problem with love. You can always refuse to love. God didn't make you a robot where you are forced to do. God made you for love so that you would choose to do. And here's the fatal flaw. You just might choose not to. So the most important thing that's going to happen today in your reset is who are you going to put on the throne of your heart? Because God isn't going to do that for you. He's letting you do that. That's a sign of love. Love is when I put you before me. Can we not all just admit that our default switch is selfish? They're going to receive God's comfort and satisfaction because they're going to obey and see him biggest and highest. Look at verse 13. Haggai, the messenger of the Lord, spoke by the commission of the Lord to the people, saying, I am with you, declares the Lord. So the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and they worked on the house of the Lord of hosts, their God, on the 24th day of the 6th month in the 2nd year of Darius the king. See, the end of the passage is not that they got busy, it's that they got God stirred. I don't want to see Highlands County get busy doing religious stuff. I want God to stir God's people. Because when that happens, the fruit of it will be powerful and real and passionate. And you know what? People out there will argue with all the facts of our faith, but it's very hard to argue with a changed life that's passionate about Jesus. The master who calmed the storm can settle the waves in your heart. The teacher who brought to thousands the truth of God on Galilee's shores, he can speak in Highlands County. The miracle worker who multiplied the loaves and fish can take care of your needs. He's still on the throne. He's still able. And the only thing is I'm willful down here going, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. And he's saying, look, I'll get the throne of your heart when you open the door and let me in. You can't make your own rules and get the road to lead you where you want to go. I got to finish because I'm out of time. Haggai chapter 1 reminds me of a story. I want you to imagine that you have the opportunity to make a birthday party. You're going to make a birthday party for your mama. Whether she's gone or not, just go with me in your mind. You're going to make this wonderful birthday. You go back to This Is Your Life and Facebook, and you pull in friends she hasn't seen for years. You buy them tickets. You fly everybody in. You make a cake. You decorate the room. You bring in your mama, and here's her teachers from her past, her friends from school, all these people, and your mama's standing there, and she's sobbing. She's going, this is the most wonderful birthday ever. Now, an hour later, the people are gone. Mama's gone. You're cleaning up and you're getting the cake out of the carpet and, doing the stuff you do after a party. And your spouse looks at you and goes, so how'd you feel about that party? And you turn and you say, I didn't really get anything out of it. Because, nobody brought me gifts. They all were for her. And I really like Happy Birthday to You with instruments. And they sang it without instruments. I hate it without instruments. This was it was not fulfilled. Listen to me. We're living in a time when Christians actually have misunderstood God's position in his own church, where we think this was designed to be club me. And the truth is, it's for him. Your best day is when you're walking with him, letting him make a difference through your life. And when you can stand in eternity and he says, well done. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's a good day. Not the day it's most comfortable. Not the day it's easiest to let his choice be more important than your choice. Father, thank you this morning for the opportunity to open up Haggai 1. Thank you for the opportunity to know something from your word this morning. I pray that we would allow your spirit to do a work through your word in your people, and that we would get a passion for the call that you gave us. Oh God, I pray that there would be in the abide days ahead, 14 more days yet to happen. You would speak mightily, that you would grab hold of people who have said, I'm going to set aside food so that I can have time for prayer. I'm going to set aside my choices, my comforts, and I'm going to exalt the name of Jesus in my life. Oh, God, do something powerful, because this country and our time is sad and needs a touch from a mighty God through people who are passionate to follow him. In Jesus' name, amen.